Yeah, I think it's really important to recognize that when Elon makes these comments about the importance of Twitter and how it's this bastion of free speech, really what he's doing is he is being the most obvious manifestation of this very prevalent idea on the right that you are not allowed to face any consequences for the things that you say. We see this in a lot of different formats. We see, anytime there is any sort of attempt to moderate social media conversations, the response is, "I have free speech. You can't tell me what I can and cannot say." This whole idea about cancel culture, that people are facing consequences for things that they say. All of this is about having people who, in a broad sense, often feel as though they have status anxiety. They're worried about their position in American culture. This is a way in which that manifests, that people feel as though now even Twitter is keeping me from being the real man that I want to be and saying the things that I want to say. When the reality, of course, is that Twitter as a private company, pre-Elon Musk in particular, was allowed to do that, was allowed to say, hey, look, you can't be abusive on our platform. You can't say anti-Semitic things on our platform. Those are not okay. It was an example of consequences being applied to speech, but now this idea that consequences are being applied to speech is framed in this broad argument on the right, where this status anxiety exists and people feel like, oh, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do because that's an imposition on me.
Well, Angelo, I have to imagine there's a corollary there with Musk trying to sort of say that he's being blackmailed, or referencing this idea of being blackmailed, and like, this is just how a free market works. Right. Companies get to choose how they spend their dollars.
That's exactly right. I mean, it's obviously it's a total conflation, right, of the idea of blackmail and what just the standard, as you point out, what a standard marketplace is. The whole point is for a company like this, and for most of commercial media, right, is to produce a product so that you get an audience, and then advertisers want to reach that audience. And his response, I think, reinforces that. It's to try to invert that. It's to say you must support these ideas, otherwise you're the bad guy. And beyond that, and so Philip sort of alluded to this, is like you're then going to start to activate your audiences to not just express outrage and indignation, but from my perspective, increasingly then gin them up to take more extreme means because they feel like they're on the margins. It's sort of this ends justify the means, might makes right side of approach, wrapped in this idea that you're advocating for some sort of big value. And Linda Yaccarino reinforced that the next day when she talked about the fact that advertising partners need to really align with the values of what X is trying to do here, even going one step further to say those that are suggesting that those that are remaining are really buying into this larger worldview. And that's never been the idea behind advertising. It's never been to endorse the program. It's been to align with or try to get to that audience, but to also avoid, basic controversies or extremes.
Philip, I want to sort of zoom out, and I want to think about the conversation that we're having, because listen, we have viewers that don't use X. They may not be thinking about Elon Musk. This is all happening in the broader environment, as you said, where the conservative movement is trying to make the First Amendment something that it is not. It's also happening against the backdrop of the very real possibility of a second Trump term, where Trump is telling us exactly what it is he will do. And part of his effort is to undermine the institutions that would be there to hold him to account.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, and you showed the piece that I wrote this week that looked at all of the warnings we get about him setting the DOJ against his enemies, or taking over the military. He already tried to do those things. He already had this entire investigation spurred by William Barr, the Durham investigation, that was trying to get dirt on the people who launched the Russia investigation. Right? I really think it's important to contextualize that when we talk about this Elon Musk thing. These arguments are incredibly stupid. They're very stupid arguments. But what they depend on is that you're on Team Musk. You're on team right side. You're on team, we are the conservatives. It depends on this fostering of a sense of we're the opponents of the bad guys on the left, which is exactly what Donald Trump has done. Elon Musk is Donald Trump, except in the business world, right? Instead of politics. That is what Donald Trump has done. You are on my team or you are the enemy. And that's what Musk is doing with his Twitter fight. That's how Donald Trump frames his politics in increasingly obvious ways. And so when we think about the prospect of him becoming president again in January 2025 and implementing those things, he is now more prepared than he was even in 2020 to deploy federal power against his enemies, which is what his base has been inculcated to want.